Good evening. Welcome back to my channel. Um, Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate all of those who have tuned in. We are in episode 2 of Rose Petals Revived. And today's topic that I want to cover that I think most people may not talk about is co-conspirators. When someone is going through a domestic violence situation, a lot of times they have so much going on. There is so much going on around them. Their high stress situation can cause them to not be as aware as they would like, not be as vigilant. They're not paying attention to their surroundings. They're not putting things together. They're not putting the pieces together in terms of who they interact with, coincidences, or, you know, something happens, or next thing you're engaging new people that maybe you had never met. And not that you might just naturally meet people or engage with people, or it could be people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. It could be coworkers, family members, associates, things like that. So, and I mentioned this before about, especially if you live in a small community, let's say, people know the person that you are with, and, there's a lot of gossip, of course, that could be going on or not. It just depends. But I am finding in a lot of stories that have been going on, there is an uptick of co conspirators that are getting involved in these sort of things where the women, or even men who are participating in helping the person, whether it's stalking, spying, you know, it could be anything that is going on where they are running back and communicating your every move, the things that you are doing, especially if they are fearful that you may be trying to leave. Especially if you are trying to, make a plan, whether it's, seeing an attorney or, looking into visitation, trying to get your own place, moving out of state, whatever it is, anytime that you are attempting to make a move, that period of time becomes more dangerous for some people, and I don't think they're really aware. And, everybody has the bravado, some people are like, I'm not afraid of nobody, and this and that, and, you puff yourself up to think that, okay, or you think, oh, well, I'll just call these people and call that people and they know better and blah, 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 blah. But we can see that that's not the case. you know, a lot of women who are not making it out, they are dying at the hands of other people, and they do have large families. They do have people that know the couple, and things like that. They have a mother, they have a living father, they, a father who is maybe even involved. They have uncles, cousins, all of these people that are around, and, might live nearby and whatnot. But at the same time, a lot of times people might not even suspect their own family members. You don't know who may have a grievance with you. You don't know who may be in cahoots with that person. And so, therefore, you can't figure out, and a lot of times they might keep the information close to the vest, but usually it comes out during an argument. You get into a confrontation, and then next thing you know, all this information spills out, and you're thinking to yourself, I only spoke to these people, or I only talked to these people, or I remember that day, and I didn't really see anybody, or I did engage this person, or I engaged that person, and so they just find themselves like, you just start questioning every single thing that's happening to you, and you really, really, really have to pay attention daily, daily, because a lot of times, even if you try to confront the person, typically they're not going to admit it. They're going to just say, oh, you're crazy, you know what I mean. And so then next thing you know, you start doubting yourself, you start doubting your woman's intuition, you start doubting everything that's happening, because they're convincing you that no, you're crazy. These things are not happening. No one's doing this and no one's doing that. And I will tell you that unfortunately, there are some people that get off on that sort of thing. They get off on it. And, we don't know why. There's been analysis done and data and all of these things. And I don't think that they're getting to the bottom of it. I don't think that they are really being able to figure out why that is. But I think that there is an uptick, excuse me, of women who are participating. And typically, it could be because maybe they want the person that you're with, they want to be involved, or maybe they already have been involved. And so they, give the person ideas, or, you find yourself getting into altercations with women, and you're like, why am I having all this static, from what is going on? What is happening? You know what I mean? Or, people are starting to act funny. You know what I mean? One minute people are speaking to you, the next minute they're not speaking to you. Or, there's a change in behavior, there's a shift in the atmosphere of things that are going on. And unfortunately, you might find yourself being very isolated because you're thinking, people are like, oh no, you're just tripping, that's not really happening to you, or they don't believe you. And so then that's even more frustrating. That's even more frustrating because I think women who are going through these things do not feel validated, and especially us as, black women, for whatever reason, the narrative constantly keeps getting spinned that, we're not valuable, or we don't have any this, or, whatever that they try to say, which is false. We know that's a false narrative. But for whatever reason, you know, we are finding ourselves in these positions, and a lot of times, like I said, there may be other people that involve that you're not aware of that may be participating. And so again, I've said this time and time again, most people, they journal about their day, they journal about how they feel, they journal about things like that, but they don't journal and keep documentation of strange interactions, things that happen daily between, you and the person, in terms of, you know you have to keep a record of these things, because it always comes down to he said, she said, they said, we said. You know what I mean? And so a lot of times you need that, you know what I mean? And a lot of times people are out here and they're making videos, and those things end up getting posted to social media and things like that. But in terms of, if you have to go to court, it helps to have the documentation. If you go out somewhere and, next thing you know, you see that you got a scratch on your car, and you're like, how did I get this, scratch key to, somebody did this. Or, I know that, people who have had, those people that have damaged their property starts getting damaged all of a sudden, or stolen, or, all types of things start happening around the time that you are having this conflict. And a lot of times you don't think that it's related. You don't think that there any sort of correlation to it, but please believe that there could be. And you really, 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 really need to be paying attention to those things and jotting those things down, because you want to be looking for patterns and trends, and so that you can have record of those things. And unfortunately, we live in a time where, contacting the authorities is not popular. But I understand not contacting the authorities for innocent, you know, those who are harmed and are not in the wrong, that sort of thing, people that are getting killed and they didn't do anything, that's one thing. You know what I'm saying? But if you are being terrorized, if you are being victimized, if you are in a situation where you are having to fight for your life, you know what I mean? Or, weapons are being pulled on you, or even threatening you, because one of the things that I have found and we have seen and studies have shown, and you can look it up yourself, but usually after a while it's going to end up happening. The continued threats, especially if it's the same threat over and over. I'm going to kill you, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, if I can have you, nobody else can, and I'm not going to let you go, and blah, all of these things. A lot of people laugh it off like, ah. But sometimes you have to jot those things down and think of how many times those things have been said. Write down the date, the time, and what was said. You don't need to, be word for word, some sort of brief synopsis, summarizing what has been said, because you need to be trying to take a look at those things, because I am just tired, you know what I'm saying? And women are finding themselves in situations where more and more each day they are in these domestic violence situations. You know what I mean? And then there's a lot of times where people will say they don't think that the person is fearful because they're still in the situation, and why won't they just leave? And there's all of these things that one could say, and I think that it's not as easy, you know what I mean? And this is why I again started this series, because you feel wilted, even if you front and act like, I got it going on still, ain't nothing wrong and it's all wonderful, you know what I mean? There is a misconstrued love that is being portrayed. You know what I'm saying? Somebody calling you out of your name, someone cursing you out, someone threatening you, someone being aggressive, doing all of those things is not love. You know what I mean? And a lot of times maybe they have never received love, so they don't know how to give love. You know what I mean? And a lot of times there's this combative thing that starts to happen. Next thing you know, you guys are, having spectacles on the front lawn or in the house in front of the kids or, in public here and there. You know what I mean? Or and it just goes on and on and on. And it turns into being first it starts out, a couple times a week, and then it's every day, then it's every month, and then it's also on. Next thing you know, a whole year then went by, and you've been in this chaotic situation that you feel like you can't get out of. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, for whatever reason, when you decide that you want to do something different, and you're saying that you want something better for yourself, you have to be fighting that. In the system, you try to go the correct route. You try to take the right measures. You try to do the right thing without having to take matters into your own hands. Because especially if you're a mother, you don't want to be locked up. Because you then now took a life, or you then did something to now, because you have to think about your kids. You know what I'm saying? And so, women are placed in these situations where they're having to choose if I'm just going to continue to go through all this craziness because, for the sake of my children. You know what I mean? And we do hear a lot of people who say, unfortunately, the sad part, is after the fact that people knew. There's a lot of people that say that. I hear it and see it all the time where people are saying, yeah, I knew, this could probably happen, or this and this and that. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, let's start examining how we as women get there in the first place. How do we continue the cycle of getting into these relationships that are not good for us and that are not healthy? And I'm not here to bash men, you know what I mean? Because it seems like whenever you talk about this topic, there is some sort of campaign to think that you're out here bashing men or whatever, and it's not that. But I'm just saying that either they're not doing the work that they need to do to get themselves healthy and dealing with their mama trauma or daddy trauma or whatever kind of trauma or sexual assault trauma or whatever that it is that they have experienced, whatever they have seen and that they have not unlearned is now carrying over into relationships, and people are suffering. You know what I'm saying? Because for whatever reason, people seem to think that control and submission are the same, that they're synonymous with each other, and they're not. Control breeds fear. Submission is willing and is with love. You see? So we should be submitting one to another, the spouse to his wife, and vice versa. You know what I mean? It's not a one-way street. But nonetheless, for whatever reason, people seem to think that by controlling a person, by controlling their every move and telling them, where they can go, who they can talk to, doing all of these things, that somehow equals love. And I think that there are a lot of women who are finding themselves in these situations, and they're thinking, okay, well, yeah, he spent money on me, he got me this ring, and he got me this jewelry, and he buys me this, and he does that, and he pays the bills, and he does all of these things. You know what I mean? But meanwhile, there's this other behavior that makes you cry, makes you feel sad, makes you, fearful that you got to be plotting, wondering if you're going to have to be defending yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're thinking about your children and what they're experiencing. They're terrified. They're scared. They're crying. It's this whole thing. And I'm thinking, what household wants to be experiencing that? No household, no person wants to be going through that. You can't even sleep good. You can't even sleep well. You know what I mean? And the sad part about it is that there's a lot of women that don't really have an exit strategy. They don't have a place that they can go, you know what I mean? Because they're either in the same community, they don't have the money to relocate to another state, and maybe they shouldn't have to move out of state in order to escape the violent person. You know what I'm saying? They shouldn't have to take all these drastic measures in order to escape the violent person. You know what I mean? But I think that that's why they always say that, that's a dangerous time when women are trying to leave, then that's a more dangerous time than when they're in it. Because for whatever reason, there's a fear of abandonment, especially if you have been the sole person, you might be their only friend. They might have people that they deal with, but in terms of their friend, you might be that person, you know what I mean, that they share the intimate details with, that they talk to all the time, that they're with every day, that sort of thing. And some people might not have any, they have their buddies, but that's not the same thing. The homies are not the same thing. They don't replace you. And so there's a clinging that occurs, there's a holding on for dear life that happens, and you become that thing. And especially if the person doesn't have a mother, you know what I mean? You are feeling that void, unfortunately, for that person. And so when you're talking about leaving, you find yourself in some very, very dangerous waters. And I'm just saying that, I just want women to really, really start paying attention and realize that, there are people out here that will participate in all of these things, and they will applaud, help facilitate, and do all of these things into these behaviors with these people. And you may be unsuspecting, have no idea. You find out later, you can't believe it. You know what I mean? That, how could these people do that? You know what I mean? And there's some people who even go as far as paying people to do things, because there's people that will do anything for money. And so they're down, you know what I mean? They might be falling on hard times, or maybe whatever it is. And so, you just give them a few dollars and they're willing to go do whatever. So I just be wanting the women to be aware. You're going to have more awareness about what's going on, especially if you're in the midst of it and right now you don't have an exit. Right now you're just going through and you're just like, this is crazy. There's all these things that are happening. It's chaos and pandemonium on a day-to-day basis. You got to stay strong. And like I said, documentation is going to be your friend. You know what I'm saying? And it's not popular. You know what I mean? Anytime you start talking about legal systems, it's not popular. You know what I mean? But the thing that is amazing to me is that as a community, when we are sitting here talking about the injustices, why don't we talk about the injustices that are happening to the women and children? Why isn't that a strong subject matter? You know what I'm saying? Because who are they supposed to call? Who are they supposed to call in the event that they're going through? In the event that they, not everybody wants to be fighting their man physically, having physical altercations and be all outside and, feeling like they're going to have to stab them and pulling a gun and doing all this crazy stuff. It happens, but nobody wants to be going through that. So who are they supposed to call? They supposed to call their dad so that he can come over and get shot? Are they supposed to call, you know what I'm saying, and get into a physical altercation, you know what I mean, or whatever? Because it can escalate. And I'm not saying that it always happens, and there are times when the person that you're dealing with, you know what I mean, maybe they might be like, okay, they don't want to take it there with different family members that might be in your family, and that sort of thing. But why do you want to be in these situations where everybody's risking their freedom? You know what I mean? It's like nobody values freedom for some reason. There's talk about the police, there's talk about all of these things, but there's these behaviors that seem to continue that are provoking the police to be in your business. So I'm just trying to understand, you know what I mean? And I mean, it's crazy, you know what I'm saying? This is very, very serious because like I said, I mean, how many, and I've said it time and time again, how many balloon releases are we going to do? How many? How many is it going to be before there's going to be some sort of change? This stuff and behaviors isn't so normalized in our community, it's going out of style. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, it's just constant and constant and over and over and over and over and over again. How many burials are we going to have? You know what I'm saying? How many tears are going to be shed? How many mothers are going to be brokenhearted and fathers brokenhearted having to bury their children? You know what I'm saying? No matter what age, you know what I mean? It still hurts them. to have, grown adults or whatever that they having to bury now. And it's traumatizing. And then now the children are left, to be in the care of others. What if something happens to those people? Then where are they going to go? And some people don't have an alternative. Some people don't have the family where they can support the children, especially if it's a large number of them. So now they go to foster care. They end up getting split up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's all of this residual effects, and negative impacts that occur from all of these things. But the behaviors seem to continue because, like I said before, I have seen this sort of behavior ever since I was young. you know, ever since I was young. That was, you know what I mean, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And it's still the same thing that keeps happening. And now it's probably more hush hush because, again, nobody wants to call the police. You know what I'm saying? Nobody wants the police to be involved. Nobody wants to do this and this, that, and then, then of course, there's a whole kind of society around, snitching and all this other craziness. But I'm like, so you're saying that you are willing to keep this code alive if something happens to your child. You know what I mean? So that means that that's more important to you than the life of your child. You know what I'm saying? That's more important to you than a life of your loved one. That's what you're saying when you are doing that. You know what I mean? And so, anyway, I'm talking about these things because it's very serious. And I just want to encourage women that are going through these things that, try to read the Psalms every day. If that's not something that you have, get you a Bible, because let me tell you something. If it wasn't for my faith, I just don't know where I would be. You know what I mean? And getting a Psalms, you could even post it up in your room, post it in the bathroom, a Psalms, a good Psalms where you can look at that every day and be encouraged by it every day, and you'll see it every day, and you'll need that. You can look at it on your phone. You can read the Psalms daily, every morning or evening or something like that. You know what I mean? And if you're a praying person, then you're gonna have to pray, for those things. Pray that the person will have a saved mind. Pray that they will be delivered from whatever, get the healing that they need, so that they will stop the behaviors, because it just goes on and on. It becomes a pattern, and you can see it every time they make an arrest. When they pull up the person's arrest record, they show that it's previous behaviors that have happened before. They show that they, in some other state, that they had a record of domestic assault against someone else in some whole other state, or even in the same state, but they have previous arrests for the same thing. So they're just going from one person to the next, to the next, to the next, and there's no accountability, I'm sure. You know what I mean? And some people are fearful. They don't want to go and, testify or whatnot, because they might, they're using intimidation, and that's where the co-conspirators come in. They are intimidating people so that they're not able to come and say what has happened to them. And so then it just continues on and on and on and on and on in a vicious cycle. And I'm saying that, when are we going to be trying to get off the roller coaster or the hamster wheel? Like, when? When is that going to happen? And I'm just telling people that, this is a forum that I'm in, trying to encourage people while they're in the midst of it. Because a lot of times people aren't even thinking about things. It's like this false love and false narrative that, a woman must be doing something in order for the man to be acting this way is ridiculous. Like, what is she doing to make him act this way? Because basically you're saying that she has all the control now, that he doesn't have any self-control, that basically she's controlling him and he can't control his own emotions. You know what I'm saying? Or even vice versa, because now we have, lesbian couples that are going through the same thing, and whatnot. So, it's just like, people have to be responsible for their own self. People have to be responsible for what they're experiencing and what they're going through, and their own healing, and whatever that it is, so that they can stop inflicting harm onto other people. Because your children are learning the same thing, and 9 times out of 10, they will end up in the same situation when they get older. It's a small percentage of children that don't. It's a small percentage. And like I said, the stats are there. You can research this information, you can Google it. And you will find that it's learned. It's learned in the home, it's learned in school, wherever they're seeing it at, wherever they're seeing these behaviors, where they see a man attacking a woman, being aggressive to a woman, putting his hands on a woman, calling a woman a disrespecting a woman, all of that, if they see that there's no consequence, or you see people standing around and looking around like, wow, yeah, they going at it again, and it's just on and on and on, and you constantly hear about it, and some people glorify it. You know what I mean? I've heard stories where some people are excited, like, yeah, I busted him upside the head, or the guy's like, yeah, I had to choke her out, I had to slap her because her mouth was this and this and that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying that if you're provoked by words, then you definitely need some help. You definitely need some help because people are going to say all kinds of things to you. You know what I mean? They talked about Jesus. You know what I'm saying? So if you can't handle some words, if words make you want to do physical harm to somebody and be aggressive, then that means that there's something that you need to work on within yourself. So this particular episode is really a call to arms because this is starting to get out of hand. And it's like, when are we going to start really highlighting this thing? And instead of us talking about vetting people and picking the right person and doing all of that, you don't realize how masks be on. People will come up and show up with their representative. You can figure out who somebody's family is all day long, but it doesn't even matter because some people do come from good families. They do come from, for whatever, but you don't know what was going on behind closed doors. Yeah, you've seen them. They was married for 30, 40 years. You know what I mean? But you don't know what was happening in their home. So that's not a true measure of a person, because once somebody moves out of their home and becomes an adult and they go off to college or wherever and do all of that, you don't know how they could develop, how their minds could develop or what they could see. You know what I mean? So as we want to talk about picking the right person and all of that, you know what I mean? There's a lot of people that might mask that. Now somebody did give some good advice, which I thought was really, really great advice. And they were saying that during the dating phase, maybe, create a situation or see how they respond in a conflict. See how they respond in conflict with you, with their mother, with their aunts, just with women in general. How do they respond with conflict, and vice versa? You know what I'm saying? You have to see all of those things, you know what I mean, so that you can get a gauge. Because if somebody is quick to be, calling somebody all else to the name, but then they look at you and say, oh, but not you, baby, you're not too far behind. One false move and you'll be in the same category in a minute. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying that in this particular episode, like I said, we are just having a frank conversation about the things that can be happening to people and can happening to you that you may not be aware that there are other people that could be involved in the demise of your situation and be helping to influence harm, to you and your children. So be careful, be safe out there, be vigilant. And again, documentation is your friend. However you need to do it, you know what I'm saying? With video record, that's great, but we got to take it back to the old school. And I know everybody likes electronics and all that stuff, but pen to paper is your friend. So let's try to do that, and I hope to see you next time. Again, this is episode 2 of Rose Petals Revived, because we are calling these things out. We are not going to stand on the sidelines anymore and continue to be watching our women dying. We're sick of it. We've had enough. We've had it up to here. We can't take it anymore. And like I said, it doesn't seem to be a popular topic. Nobody wants to talk about it. That's negative. People think it's so negative, but it's happening. And like I said, it's every day. It's every single day, and I know that it may be happening to other women, but I just know that there is less publicity, there is less news coverage, there is less going on for us as women of color in terms of things that are happening and the violence that occurs in our families and to us and our children. And so I'm here to be a voice. I am not going to be silent. I am going to continue to raise my voice and cry aloud for the injustice to the women. All right, so hopefully I'll see you soon. Hopefully you'll stop by for our next episode. Stay tuned. Again, please like, share, and subscribe. You can hit the notification buttons for the next episode so that you'll be notified. Some days I may be live. Some days it might be pre-recorded. It just depends, you know what I mean? But we are going to be covering various topics in this series. Again, this is Rose Petals Revived, and I hope to see you soon. Have a good evening and a blessed day.